Anniversaries come and go, but this one was worth celebrating. It was the first anniversary of the day I discovered that my marriage was over. I know what you're thinking, who celebrates something like that? Well, I'm not so much celebrating the unpleasantness as I'm pausing to recognize that I have survived this situation and come out of it stronger. On this day a year ago, I was sitting in my office thinking, I didn't sign up for this. Did I? I remember the vows. For better or for worse, in sickness and in health until death do us part. Death, I think, was beginning to seem like a way out. That was my exit strategy. You see, that day I found out that my beautiful and loving wife of 6 years, my best friend, the woman who had been everything to me, had turned out to be a cheating. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking the signs were there. She stayed out late, showered as soon as she got home, was always too tired for sex, and got annoyed at me for every little thing. No, none of that happened. I was just an ignorant fool. So how did I know? It was Wednesday, and it was getting close to lunchtime. I was on my way back to the office after an unscheduled visit to a client, and thought I'd get a fried fish sandwich from a little store I knew. They call it the Whale, and they make it fresh, fried, with tartar sauce, lettuce leaves, and tomatoes in a roll. It's like fish in a bun. You know how it is when things are going well. Everything is falling into place, the customers are happy, and you like to think about the good lunch that awaits you in just a few minutes. That's the way it was. I was fat, dumb, and happy. That's when it happened. I was stopped at a stoplight when I saw my lovely wife's car coming from the other direction. She turned right into the parking lot of the local Don't Tell Anyone motel. I thought, what the hell? I turned right into the gas station parking lot, pulled into a vacant space, and watched as she got out of her car and headed straight for one of the rooms. She knocked. The door opened. She walked in like she'd done it 1,000 times. What the hell? You're probably thinking I ran across the street and started pounding on the door. Then I broke it down and beat my lover with my bare fists. No. Now you think I slipped across the street and came in from the other side, where I found the curtains slightly parted. That I peeked between the curtains and saw everything I needed to know. No, that wasn't it either. I needed to know, but I didn't need her to know that I knew. I just found a place where I could sit quietly in my car and watch that door. An hour after she arrived, she left. 5 minutes later, the man in an expensive suit came out of the room, got into a Lexus, and drove away. Typical. I always thought a Lexus was an overpriced commodity for someone who wanted to show off. I was useless that day. I didn't even try to work. I just sat in my office and researched divorce laws online. It was as bad as I had heard. Regardless of the motivation behind the divorce, no fault or because of adultery, the result was the same. Damn her to hell. They had to pay. Then I realized, I didn't even know his name. How was I going to make him pay if I didn't know who he was? Fate intervened that night. I had barely said 2 words to her all evening, and she was asking me what was wrong. What the hell did she think was wrong? Did she feel guilty? Was she afraid I knew something? Or was her thinking so chaotic and her behavior so disjointed that she hadn't connected my attitude and her actions together? I stupidly watched the nightly news, and there was a local report of a bank robbery during my lunch break. The reporters had videotapes of the robber's appearance, and the woman involved in the raid looked something like my wife. The robber was wearing a COVID mask, but her hair, her eyes, her height, and her build made her a good double for the woman I married. Of course, I knew it wasn't her, because my wife was in that motel room. For a jerk in a Lexus. But I can play dumb. Hell, maybe I'm not even playing. The next morning, I called the police department and asked about the robbery. I was told they were working on a few leads, which, in cop parlance, means we got nothing. So I innocently told them that the robber looked a lot like the woman who lived across the street from me and gave them her name. I also told them she had recently bought a new car. That was a half-truth because I bought it, and I happened to know my wife wasn't home when the robbery happened. That last one was pretty darn true. I figured they'd knock on her front door, have an awkward conversation with the usher, and at least I'd get a good laugh out of it to help me get through the next few weeks while I filed divorce papers. Oh no, it went much better than that. When the cops saw that she really did look a lot like the robber, and she couldn't explain where she was during the robbery, they took her down to the station for what they euphemistically called an interview, where she was forced to confess where she had been. And with whom? It wasn't hard for anyone who heard her to guess what she had been up to. They kept her at the station while they checked her alibi. That's a simplistic way of saying they put her in a cell and went to his house. When he wasn't home, his wife gave them his work address. The sudden interest in her husband did not escape the wife's attention. When he tried to deny having an affair with my wife, they went to the motel and got the security footage. His face on that screen didn't make the police love him anymore, but it did give them both an alibi. Turns out, lying to police officers is a crime. So they went back to his house that night to charge him with a minor misdemeanor. I secretly suspect they waited until he got home on purpose, just so they could arrest him in front of his wife. It didn't result in any big fine or jail time for the __, but it did result in his divorce. The story was too juicy to be kept secret. The cheating raider incident quickly became a running joke at the station. The police told the couple. The couple told their friends. Their friends told their friends. And soon, my wife and the __ became the laughingstock of the town. Even the judge who heard my divorce petition laughed when he realized who she was. In the end, the divorce was final. She had done everything that was expected of her and uttered all the usual cliches. But her confidence was shattered. And it would not be repaired in this life. Everywhere she went, she heard whispers and stifled laughter behind her back. And soon she was out of town. I have no idea where she is, or if they're together. And I don't care. Now I'm moving forward. Looking back, I sometimes wonder if it was worth the effort. I knew she was cheating on me, and I was happy to divorce her for it. But I wanted to make her look like a cheater who had to admit to cheating, to avoid being arrested for armed robbery. I imagined her having to admit, "Sure, I'm a liar and a cheat, but I'm not a robber." It was less satisfying than I had hoped. But I must admit, I would do it again if faced with the same situation. Eventually, 2 police officers paid me a visit. Anonymity was no longer an option, so they knew perfectly well that I was the one who had called them to report my wife. Officially, they weren't surprised. Unofficially, I offered to buy each of them a beer. We decided to consider it a small fine. I think one of them was divorced, and the other was about to get divorced. They admired my work. "Just don't do it again," was all they said to me. I wasn't sure if they meant the fake tip about my wife being a burglar, or if they were talking about marrying her. Either way, I agreed to both. And here I am, a year later. I've gotten rid of the deception that haunted me, and I'm rebuilding my life. I had a few secondary friends who were actually her friends. They knew about her betrayal, so I had no trouble cutting them out of my life. Then I redoubled my efforts toward the real friends, the ones who supported me. I didn't date anyone until the divorce was final. I spent that time dealing with my emotions. Then, about a month ago, I met a delightful woman my age. She, too, is divorced from a cheating spouse. We have so much in common. She, too, is rebuilding her life. And she, too, has made it her life's work to find the best bourbon produced on earth. We consider this our sacred mission, and we take it very seriously. Maybe we'll succeed. Maybe we won't. But we're doing it very leisurely. Right now, I am enjoying every minute I can spend with her. And tonight, she will help me celebrate my divorce.